So, okay, here we are with a brand new set of glasses. Okay, this here meeting is a, I should say welcome y'all. I've been in Mississippi for a month, so got the lingo down. Okay, this is a board budget workshop on Wednesday, June the 12th. And would you all rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, this is the time when we have public comment. Are there any people in the public? Call the roll. The glasses threw me off there. Maybe I should use yours. Anyway, Rebecca, would you please call the roll?
They do look stunning now.
Stunning.
Director Sigmund? Here. Director Rudderman?
Here.
Director Underhill?
Here.
President Thomas?
I am here.
And Director Davidson is absent.
We should cancel the meeting. Okay, now moving on to public comment. At this time, we normally have public comment. Anybody who is here wanting to make a comment on public comment issues can do so. Seeing none, let's open the discussion regarding the fiscal year 2019-20 preliminary operating and capital improvement budgets. Mr. Meyer.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. For your benefit, since you were not able to enjoy my prior presentation, I'm going to go into great detail.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah,
The rest of the board members can take a snooze. Actually, we did make a few changes from the draft preliminary budget that I presented last month. And I'm joking here, but this is something that a process we go through every year, and it's always a challenge each and every year to come up with a budget that attempts to meet the district's needs as well as meet the desires of our ratepayers to keep costs down as much as possible, to live within our means, but to still provide our goal, which is public health, public safety in terms of water and sewer. So these are the challenges we face, along with expanding government regulations and so forth. So what we generally do is the budget is really an ongoing process. Even though you adopt it at the end of the fiscal year for the following year, we look at it throughout the year. Sometime at mid-year, we make adjustments as necessary. We have discussions, what can we afford to do, what can't we afford to do. My thought process is budget is a guideline. It's a template on how to move forward. As you've seen the documents before, we have a number of different accounts. My philosophy for budgets has been this, and this is going on for 22 years now. We have basically 4 separate areas within our budget: salaries and benefits, we have services and supplies, capital outlay, and debt service. In the area of services and supplies, that's where we buy our goods, materials, and supplies, our contracts for services, vehicle expenses, buying things. In my mind, within a department, they have latitude on how to manage those accounts. If one account's over and another account's under, it really doesn't bother me. They know what they need because the priorities change throughout the year and things come up that are unanticipated. So I see the budget as a guideline that helps us there, but if somebody spends $100 over on materials and supplies, but is $200 under printing, it doesn't matter to me. It's more of a guideline on how to use it. They still have to look at the bottom line, yes, but again, as I say, things change throughout the year. So as we go through this review of the budget, the proposed preliminary budget here, we will look at our best attempt to look at historical trends on different accounts, what we use them for, project them moving forward, and then that way we come up with a budget. Now, this particular budget started in earnest, I would say, January and February, when we started reaching out to different departments where they identified existing and new unfunded needs. And one of the themes here that I like to say we've been working on is wants versus needs. And since we don't have excessive funds, we're down to needs. Sometimes the wants that we would like to have to go to the wayside. Your board back in May, adopted the 5-year CIP plan. That is also incorporated into this budget. The reason for that is being critical is, one, it's part of the budget, but it also lays out the projects that departments, engineering, and utilities are going to be working on. What we have done over the last several years is staff time spent on those particular projects are charged to those projects. And if it's a capital R&R project, that staff time is charged to the R&R, which tells us R&R funds fund that particular portion of the staff time. So it helps reduce the burden on the operating budget. And we do that by transferring in an equal amount of money. And I'll show you that a little bit later. As you remember, back in February, we refinanced our PERS UAL debt, so that increased debt service, but it also reduced our benefit costs because we paid down a significant portion of that UAL. And that UAL and the normal cost for PERS shows up in the benefits line under salaries and benefits.
So reduced benefits doesn't, mean what it says.
No, I'm sorry, it reduced the cost of those benefits,
okay.
yes. Thank you for that clarification. We also, and this is my annual attempt to provide Director Underhill with some budgetary humor, so to speak.
Will everybody else get it?
Yes. Based on the last audit, our auditors recommended that we record our FERC relicensing, dam relicensing, and other regulatory licensing entries differently on the budget side. Basically, what we had done in the past is we would not budget for those licenses and permits that we had that were going to be reimbursed by NCPA and MID, related to New Hogan and the North Fork project. Because basically they're a wash. The payments come in, we pay, and then they pay out, so it's a net zero. However, the auditors would like us, moving forward, to recognize it as an expense and as a revenue. So that has been put into the budget this year, about $753,000 in additional expenses, but we also have a like amount coming in for revenues. It's still a net zero effect on the budget. It's just that we're recognizing it both in the budget terms, both as an expense and a revenue offset. So that's new. We added a new vehicle lease program. That's coming in. So, and that's being included as well, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on that. And after some conversations about different positions, what do we need? Do we need operator, purchasing agent? And Michael can add more to this as if necessary here at this particular point in time. But it was determined internally and through discussions with staff that what we really do need is a purchasing agent, and so that we do not add an additional body, our FTE count will still stay at 66. We decided through Damon's group and Michael in discussions is we can unfund an electrician position. So we would take out an electrician and put in a purchasing agent. And that's what's included in this budget. On slide 3, it's a quick review of our revenue summaries. I'm sorry.
Ask the board at this point if you want to expand on that discussion at this point, or do you want to get back to it later?
I'd just like to know, this purchasing agent is going to be part of what group? Engineering? or
Utilities.
Operations, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, you have the,
Michael, when you say you want to expand on it, are you ready to prepare that you have job descriptions and you're kind of redoing your whole organization or whole, you know what I mean?
We don't have a draft job description yet, so let's take a look. But we did do some research that along the lines, some of the questions that you had asked.
So Jeff summed it up. This is something that just kind of keeps rising to the top for us as a really, it's an unmet need. And then we've seen a lot of inefficiency in the way that we currently do a lot of our purchasing. And this was a way that we think we can realize a lot of savings. We can take time or free up some time for our supervisors, especially in the field, because really the alternative that we were looking at was adding operations staff. And we think this is actually a way to try to streamline and be as efficient as possible before we go to the board and ask for an additional FTE. And so this fits into the reorganization of the operations department that will be before your board at the next board meeting that we've already been negotiating with the union on for the last couple of weeks, and I think we'll have a proposal to present to you at the next board meeting. And then this is the research that we did in response to some of the questions from the finance committee and the board at the last meeting about really where we think we might be able to realize some savings by having the purchasing agent.
Are you possibly looking at somebody that's already currently working here that could be moved into that position?
It'll be open to internal applicants first. As per policy, we have to open it up internally first, and I think there is some interest out there. And then if we don't find a qualified candidate internally, then we would look for outside candidates.
Along the, as we're reviewing, well, this is getting further into the agenda, but the claim summary, for example, you know, we have all these purchases all over the place. And so, you know, my question will be at some point, how different will the claim summary look now? Because we'll be able to buy in bulk, which is what you said in here.
Yeah, the hope is over time, that
Right.
claim summary hopefully starts to look pretty similar from, you know, over time, that we're standardizing our inventory, we're buying in bulk, we're
Reducing
buying
our cost.
office materials and field supplies. All of those things are gradually being standardized and purchased in bulk to the extent possible. So it hopefully would simplify and start to make those claim summaries look a little bit more, I don't know, you would see what you expect to see in those. Right now, we have a lot of different people that are responsible for purchasing for their own individual shops. And we indicate some of the time that they spend on that in that memo. And they really don't have time to coordinate across the district on standardizing inventory or to find, you know, to spend the time even to find the best prices. They need something right now, they find it and buy it.
Speaking of the time that they spend, you indicate over a year's period, this equates to what we're spending right now is over 3,000 hours, and whereas a full-time person would ordinarily work about 2,000, a little over 2,000 hours. Do you anticipate through streamlining this system and through one person doing it, that it would become, and I know this is to get more efficient, would that one person be able to handle this 3,000 hours of purchasing?
I think we were providing that as sort of an illustration of the effort that we're doing right now. and hopefully the purchasing agent can take on the lion's share of that. I don't think it's directly a one-to-one. Our supervisors are still going to have some involvement, even if it's just communicating with the purchasing agent about what their needs are. And so there'll still be some time spent by field staff on this process. But I think, so on one hand, it's not one-to-one and it may be overcounting. On the other hand, those numbers are just the operations department, and the other departments are also spending a lot of time on purchasing, and the purchasing agent would be district-wide.
Yeah, because we do have to keep in mind that our district covers 1,000 square miles, you know, and so somebody, and I'm saying in emergency type of a situation, we need something up in Ebbets Pass, and, you know, we don't have it in stock, and so that still has to be done, but, you know, again, the consolidation will certainly help.
Yeah, and this is something we arrived at after a lot of internal discussion, I can assure you, because I think our initial thinking was we really need operations staff. But it wasn't until we really worked through where we can gain efficiency in our workflow right now that we realized, even if this isn't adding a person in the field necessarily, it would alleviate enough time from our existing field staff that we felt like this was the best investment rather than adding an operator.
Yeah, one of the things that we need to mention is the fact that you removed the electrician, but that position had been vacant for how long?
6 months.
6 months, so that,
And even for the 6 months prior to that, it was a training
Right,
in that
right.
position. So, and this is not to say that our electricians aren't busy.
Right.
That was also a difficult decision to get at because they do have a heavy workload. We just felt like between the mechanics and the electricians, we're going to be able to manage that. Obviously with electricians and as with any of our operation staff, but especially with electricians, safety is a huge concern. So we don't want them to be understaffed and undersupplied. So we're going to keep an eye on that. But I think we can, with the proposed allocation, I think we can manage the workflow.
did Damon want to say something?
Go ahead.
Concerns of mine are that, we developed this new employee position, and then 6 months, 8 months, 2 years down the road, you decide you need that operator back. So now we have to raise, the budget to cover that. But the other thing is, you get somebody in here, can you provide to us, say for the first 2 years, the deliverables, I want to see, how much have we saved by buying in bulk versus that? And I don't know what all those deliverables are, but I'd love to have some kind of report just to ensure that we made the right decision. It was more of a need, not just a want. We want to be efficient. So I'd like to see something like that. And,
Could I just respond to both of those real quick? Those are both great points. On the first one, I certainly can't promise you that we're not still going to need to add operations staff at some point in the future. What we're trying to do now is restructure and be as efficient as we possibly can. And if down the road we still are at a point where we're really stretched too thin, we may still come back to the board with a request. So I don't want to present this as a solution to all of our operational problems. We think this is the best bang for our buck at this point, and maybe we will be able to stay at the existing size that we are right now without having to increase, but we're going to have to monitor that going forward. So I'm glad you raised that.
and see, that troubles me because, at this point, you're not quite sure, if there's no organizational changes down the road. So should we wait a little bit longer and have you do more of the full organizational to determine all the changes and say, okay, it's 66 because we're currently at 65 and we're changing to 66, is that correct?
No,
No,
we're not
no.
adding.
We're always at 66.
Yes.
So if we stay within there, I just, it's a big deal to add new staff.
Huge, yeah.
With it being the union. And, once you go in, you're stuck.
we're trying to avoid it.
I know you are, and I'm so glad. But, you know, have we checked everything? How much do you feel in dollars you're gonna save by having this person on? I haven't seen that.
So that's the second point you raised.
$100,000, or we now only spend 75 grand, or whatever.
No, that's a great point too, and I think we've talked about, both with the reorganization and with the purchasing agent, we need to develop some benchmarks that can help us evaluate how successful this is over time. Especially with the reorganization, that will be even harder to quantify, I think, but I think we can come up with some ways to do that, and with the purchasing agent, there should be some concrete examples of, here's some savings that we were able to realize, here's the number of hours that our field staff are no longer having to spend negotiating with vendors and looking for equipment and processing purchase orders. We should be able to provide you with some data that demonstrates whether this is living up to what we hope it will or not.
And then, the other thing that I'd like to state is that in our budget, what did we say our payroll was, 50% of,
It's a little bit,
revenue?
yeah, a little bit higher than total. Our total budget is about
The
60.
board to establish that our wages will be this much, as far as it's only gonna be X% of our income, and that's it. You know, that's all we have to work with, and if you can stay in that budget, and that's very common, and wages is the highest, expense for a company, but if we say at some point, we can't keep going up and up and up without saying, here's our limit, and it's 55%, whatever that magic percent is, and then we have to stay with that. And the other thing is, I had asked this at the last meeting, approving this budget means that we've approved hiring that person, and I told you that I wouldn't want to approve the budget if that was it. I'd like to make a exception that we approve the budget when we get to that time, along with that expense for the employee, the new purchasing agent. But before you're ready to go, I'd like to see what that job description is and what you want to see. So let's say you're ready to hire in 2 months, you come to the board for that approval, ready to go, because you've got all your documents.
So we have, I think Stacy has a draft job description already. We can finalize that prior to the adoption of the budget. Back to your first comment, I think we see adding this position really as part of the process of making sure that we're turning over every stone before we ask for any additional FTEs, and hopefully we won't need to anytime in the near future. But this is part of that effort. What I wouldn't want to do now is not add the purchasing agent in hopes that the reorganization by itself is going to satisfy all of those needs, because then we'd be eliminating a position from the operations department when we know we're already understaffed there, and not adding the purchasing agent isn't taking any workload off of the existing staff.
The electrician was in the operations staff.
Yes.
So at the prior meetings, you know, we had a budget shortfall, so this was your response to correct it, and I think that's great. But what if next budget, we have a shortfall and you're saying we need to add some, so where do we take away from?
It's going to be a really difficult decision.
Well, let me-
I don't
wanna-
want to sugarcoat that for you. I appreciate your concern, and I hope
take
we
charge of
aren't
this
in that position. But
Eventually.
I don't want to dodge it
Right,
as
I
if
can't.
we have an answer at this point.
No, I appreciate that, you gotta be honest.
Okay, all of Cindy's comments are valid, and I commend you for bringing them up. But I'd just like to ask a question that it appears to me that this is literally the only position within the entire organization that the person, by doing a good job, could essentially fund his own position.
I would hope so. That's the hope. It's hard for us to quantify that at this point, but I see that as a real possibility.
I've had a number of conversations with Damon offline about, you know, why are we spending $40,000 for this load of gravel or this 20 loads of gravel? I've been in the construction business. I deliver gravel. to
Loads
some
of gravel are hard to get these days.
But a couple of well-placed telephone calls can save thousands of dollars. I mean, and so I think that it behooves the person who goes into this thing to kind of keep a ledger and say, you know, this is what we were spending. This is as a result of our collaborative efforts here. You know, I'm excited about this. I think that it's a very, very positive step, and particularly if this purchasing agent has a Class 1 driver's license, he can deliver the gravel. So.
Well, I agree with both Director Cicada and Director Thomas that they would like to see the benefits at some point. And I do agree with this. And I like, you know, the breakdown of where our savings are by adding this position or having someone doing this. And I think it'd be pretty easy to quantify with that. So that's something I think we are going to see, you know, after he's been here or she's been here and we're in that position for a little while. We've been talking about this person for years to doing this. There's too many employees with credit cards out purchasing, and just, you know, and then storing stuff. It seems like we've been talking about it though in association with having a place for our purchases to be, for the purchasing agent to store inventory that then can be dispersed accordingly around the 1,000 square miles that we supervisor that we run, and that's not coming with it. We have talked about this additional building, and at the same time, it seems like it's also associated with our vehicle program and our maintenance program, and bringing all that to one place, and we're working towards that. But we're not quite there yet. We don't have a place to keep our inventory yet. And so if we're going to be housing this person in this building, where will these purchases, and I think it's great, you got operators of water and wastewater plants buying the exact same stuff, probably maybe even from different people, and having it delivered to different locations, and you're buying at different time. You're not getting that quantity discount that is available to almost anybody who buys in bulk. But we're getting this person now ahead of getting the storage facility or the facility to keep the materials. What's the plan and the time frame with that, and how will that work?
It's a good point. I think the perfect scenario down the road is we do have a centralized warehouse facility for this person to manage, and hopefully we're going to get somebody that can help us really set that up in the way to make it as effective as possible. So there will be, until then, there will be some challenges in terms of where things are stored, how we deliver the products that this person is buying. But I think the benefits of the position still are going to, I think we're still going to see a lot of benefit from it even before we have that warehouse. But I think it's a good point that will make it even more efficient.
Okay.
Did you have some comments, Damon? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like an opportunity to paint a picture from what I see right out of the gate in consideration of that fact. We have these regional warehouses that frankly have not been inventoried. Field staff might have an idea of what they have on hand, but they might have 5 of the same widget when they only need 2 or they only need 3. And so what I see right out of the gate is an initial inventory from a purchasing agent of our remote facilities to determine exactly what exists where and where there's an opportunity to optimize. So case in point, if I can no longer make a purchase and I need a widget, and I talk to the purchasing agent for the office, they might draw from inventory from Ebbets Pass. And therefore, right out of the gate, we're achieving some savings, and we're making use of our stock that's currently on hand. So while the district is working towards that centrally located warehouse, this person is gonna have to work from multiple warehouses and really stay organized and keep an accurate inventory in order to be effective. And I think that will also roll into the fleet management with enterprise, and it will additionally roll into the heavy equipment management. And as the person starts to get their sea legs from under them, they'll be able to manage all these kind of dynamic components of purchasing at the same time. Because we do recognize that they're gonna get it from all angles in terms of requests for purchases. And one of the keys is to have the type of knowledge associated with water and wastewater infrastructure to where they can understand what an emergency is versus what a want is and what the time frame may be. And so right out of the gate, though, I think it's inventory, understand what we have, also from a tools perspective. I mean, we really don't have a general understanding of how many of the same, 8-inch aluminum pipe wrench exists on people's vehicles either. Somebody could have 5 of them on the truck because they couldn't find one the other day and they went out and got another one. We don't have a handle on that. So I think that would be the initial lift is where do we exist currently? And then let's go to where we want to be.
That sounds awesome. And I think it also points to the need of a job description.
Yep.
And also maybe the goals for year one. And it sounds
Okay.
like inventories, that sounds great. So you've got me a little more excited.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Because you
yeah.
have And I think having that in writing before you ask us to approve it is important. And because, what if you hire somebody and, oh wait, we gotta update their job description? And I heard somebody say, we could get a class 1 driver, and then also with a hazmat endorsement. Those are all things that you should be writing down, and that job description is gonna be fluid for the first few months. But I'd like to see that. I'd like to know that you guys are looking at it and writing it down, so when you do hire that person, you got it.
Well, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but I think, Michael, there's recognition of the development of the job description and the need to fully come at this from a comprehensive perspective in terms of what was funded for in the budget as well. So it's not a day one allocation for salary. So there's some time there that we're going to take to develop it comprehensively.
And like I say, with approving the budget and us approving the job description prior to you hiring somebody is important to me. One, it'll hold you guys accountable to make sure that you're doing the good job that I know you do. But just, everybody's gonna, cross the T's and dot the I's. And I'm not saying don't hire them, because I think it is a good idea. But I think just saying, okay, go ahead and you guys develop this. I'd like to see the job description.
Okay, and one of the things that we're gonna have to think about is timing, because this is already June the 12th. We are going to be approving the budget at the end of the month, correct?
So why can't we approve the
Yeah, and
budget
so-
with that exception that we bring the job description approval before they hire somebody?
So the plan is, at this point, is at the next regular board meeting, you will have the whole proposed reorganization in front of you. So you'll have a new org chart, you'll have job descriptions for any new positions that are created. The whole package will be in front of the board for approval at the next meeting. And it will be on the agenda. We've had a discussion of this week. We have to have that as on the agenda before approval of the budget, because the
Right.
approval of the budget is partly impacted by that reorganization. So you will have all of that information before you, prior to approval of the budget. And the hope is that this approval of the budget, we immediately can then turn around and circulate for this position. And it's going to take us a few months to really probably get that person in.
You'd like to have somebody by like August 1 or something.
Actually, if I may, we're only funding 8 months of this position. So it gives us plenty of time, a lead in to post, to interview, to go through that whole process.
Yeah, it's going to
When we do get a centralized location for inventory, and I know you just mentioned, Damon, you just mentioned that we have storage at several of our facilities, and we have inventory, stock, equipment, materials stored there, and I know we're going to be bringing some of that stuff here, a lot of the stuff here. Do we have any opportunity to rid ourselves of property at any of our 13 locations? Is there a lot with the building on it that we might no longer need and have an opportunity for a sale anywhere? And I say that's income in my mind. It's not only reducing the expenses, becoming more efficient, but also ridding ourselves of property, which is something I've been asked to look at, and I know we have been looking at that through our ad hoc property committee.
Right, for years.
Last year, 2 years, 2 years in a row, I think. But will this program do any of that? Does anyone see any extra property that we could
Yeah.
Well, I think the most immediate one is the mechanic shop that we hopefully, once we, that won't happen with the purchasing agent, but with the
Well,
corporation
that's
yard.
the rental that here in
We're
Santa
spending,
Cruz? Yeah.
we're paying a significant
No, I
rent
got
for
that, but
that
at
shop.
any of our facilities.
That's, all right, that's the most immediate one, but I think we should be taking a careful look at all of our real property
Okay.
to see if there's anything that we don't need and,
Right.
and that has market value.
Just wanted to make that point, that that's,
It's in the forefront of our conversation because now we will be provided an opportunity to really take a critical look at that.
Okay.
One thing to note is that a lot of our facilities, whether wastewater or water, exists right next to the shop or the maintenance yard. So there might be some, it might be somewhat unique in how we go about doing that, but I think it's definitely one of the things that we should, and we will take a look at.
Cool.
I'd like to see this position be in charge of inventory, and like you said, the first thing, inventory everything wherever it is, then you'll have your list of what you don't need. And
No, that-
as you purchase for right now, you can, and if this person's in charge of the inventory, well, Ebbets Pass has X amount of inventory, and this guy always knows. So one, you could track where it's going if needed, if there's any issues there, and then what's needed.
Well, and to not, I don't want to overextend us into the plan of the next fiscal year, but one of the items on the capital list is a computer maintenance management system. And one of the items incorporated in that is an asset management component where a purchasing agent can take barcodes and literally when they conduct inventory, they can barcode every widget that we have. And as staff goes to use those widgets, they can use their phone and check them out of stock. And that will provide a report to the district to understand where we use material. And that, in the long run, will allow us to start to hone in on what it is we actually use a lot and what it is we need to keep on hand and what are critical items. So that's part of the long-term goal.
and you mentioned inventory and trucks. That just sounds like an awesome idea. And not only inventory in our different facilities, but inventory what we have on each truck. Great, good to hear. Good idea.
Couple things I would like to add to this is there are some supplies that are more prone or better located at the plants themselves, especially when we're dealing with chemicals for treatment. Those, we buy in bulk, but they get delivered to the plants. We don't want them coming here because that creates hazmat tracking and everything else. So, and there's specific needs. So those are the things that we will continue to store at the treatment plants and such. But the other more centralized items, yes, it's a perfect opportunity. And I wanted to come back to a comment that you made, Director Cicada, and I really believe that this is going to be important. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to track because there's not going to be a dollar and cents to it, but our goal is to get work completed. Our guys in the field who are doing these purchase orders and working this are being taken away from actually doing physical work out in the field, fixing pipeline breaks or doing more proactive stuff. This will free them up to be able to do more work, which we've all wanted to see for a long time. That, I think, is something we can track to see, okay, before we fix X amount of breaks, now we're fixing X amount. That delta is something we can be very proud of. That's more in a productivity frame. It's a little bit more difficult to put a dollar figure to that, but that's the other component about freeing up their time, which you saw through this process, to be able to do more productive work.
So for instance, the overtime weekend work, that perhaps could be eliminated just now. So there's a good example, you know,
Yeah.
it's not in dollars, but you see the predictive,
That's-
like you're saying.
We've already taken that out of the next fiscal year budget in part because of the reorganization. We've reduced the overtime budget.
How are we doing as far as numbers are concerned on this weekend thing? You know, I haven't heard any status lately.
I don't have the latest numbers, Damon.
So there was roughly 18,000 in overtime dollars that was allocated. We have approximately 4,000 left. We have not gone out these past 2 weekends for the weekend work effort. We went from approximately 60 in-process leaks and recognized that we're kind of always adding to that. And we're down to about 15 in-process leaks currently, but field staff have fixed approximately 55 as part of the weekend work effort.
Wow.
So we have a little bit of this going on, but at the same time, we've dramatically reduced the amount of actual in-process leaks, and we still have some money left, but we're getting to the end of the program, and I've let staff know in anticipation of the reorganization, that we're gonna start to put away the weekend work effort. Although if we need something, we can give it a final push before the end of the fiscal.
Part of that white paper that you're gonna present, you know, seeing this productivity, saying, okay, now we have, you know, 100 leads, and we're gonna get 75 of them done by hiring this,
Yeah.
purchasing agent. That would be nice.
Okay.
Okay, Jeff, can we move on? We're going to be
Certainly.
into our lunch hour.
Yes, we need to finish up because you need a break before your board meeting.
Yeah, right.
But I think honestly, that in my mind is the bulk of this conversation in the budget. Everything else kind of flows, it's very easy to look at as we go through. We did make some changes in how we balanced the budget. We had deficits, we removed some positions, we looked at cutting some costs. I won't go into great detail, but one of the things that I do want to point out is if we're looking at revenues, and in particular, water and sewer sales, our rate increases were about 4%. And so you can see we're get about 4% increase in sewer revenues. The additional is new connections. But we don't have that significant amount of increase on the water side. Part of that is I was kind of trying to figure out a new system because now we charge for consumption, all consumption. So last year, kind of looking at it, I kind of over budgeted, but our consumptive numbers haven't grown that much, especially with the weather recently. And some people are concerned, they've taken into water conservation and others. We have to be very mindful of the fact that production, consumption is about 18 to 20% of our water revenues. So if consumption stays low, we won't get a significant growth in that particular area.
You know how I'm trying to get approval to, so people can disconnect? Where is that income stated in here?
The amount that we're gonna do,
Yeah, you know, what I'm trying to work on, right? Trying to get the.
it's not stated in here.
It's not stated. Where would it normally fall in?
It would come under, if it's a water disconnection, it would come under water sales.
Water that.
Yes,
Okay.
that is
Because they're
base
paying
rate
for
and,
it minimum, no matter what.
yeah,
Okay.
that's base and consumptive in that
Okay.
dollar
And so
amount.
you did not include it?
No,
here?
I did not.
Just in case, and if we don't pass it, you would just make an amendment?
No,
to add it back
I'm
in?
not gonna go, I would not go back and amend the budget. I would look at that as a budget and adjust, and look at things through the year. We may have more connections to help offset that.
But for right now, it's not included in the water sales? It's
No,
not-
I have to work on those. Overall, our operating revenues are up 2.2%.
Well, Jeff, you just said something that we did our rate increase. And our rate, and what you're saying is our rate increase on water was much more than 0.8%.
It was
But
4%.
it was a 4%
Yeah.
increase, and so you're not assuming the same, or can you assume the same consumptive use as last year? And if you did, wouldn't that increase be 4% instead of 0.8?
Well, that's over budget, not over year-end projection. So as I mentioned, when I tried to budget last year and the break on consumption and everything else, I over budgeted for consumptive side.
Okay.
So
So your last year's budget wasn't actual?
it was not actual, it's all budget. So
Okay.
that's what we're looking at. It was probably a little overly optimistic.
Okay.
This is more
I
down
mean,
to
because
reality of what we're actually using.
the sole reason for doing a rate increase is to have more revenue. And-
Understood.
And it doesn't appear as though we did that but it's solely because last year was over budgeted and you're being conservative with your budget this year in looking forward to consumptive use and taking into account conservation and a heavy water year.
And we are not using this, we did not see significant growth in consumption.
Right, okay.
So we're pretty
So-
much plateauing out.
So far, so maybe, it might be because we're so
Yeah,
wet.
and so see, and that was what, we get our big water read.
Pardon me?
We get our big water read.
Yeah, but in looking at this, I balance it out over the year, because I take
yeah.
into account last summer as well. We are nowhere near our consumptive levels for 2010, 2012.
Right.
When we look at,
Use more water.
that's the challenge. State tells us to use less.
Right.
Property tax revenues is going to go up 141,000 from budget. That's based on numbers from the treasurer tax collector, based on their information. I double checked it, so that's current. Investment income will go up from budget. I under budgeted last year because I didn't anticipate such a bump up in interest rates. So we're actually catching up to projections. The biggest jump here is in other revenues, which is the reimbursements from NCPA and
Oh, yeah, because
MID.
we didn't have them on in the
Exactly,
budget, yeah.
exactly. When I talked about transfers in, the money coming in from the R&R funds to help pay for salaries and benefits, we also take money from the R&R funds to help pay for the debt service. Our debt service is in the operating budget for transparency. So all our debt service you'll see in the budget, but it's funded by money coming from other sources. The Water Capital R&R Fund 125, the Sewer Fund 135. So these are the R&R loans that we have at this particular moment, and that's where the monies are coming in. This 101,000 was the USDA Reach 3A bond that we're paying the debt service for that. That's also being paid for by R&R funds. We are in our second year of paying down the building. We're bringing in some interest earned on that Fund 108 to help pay the interest on that loan. It's down from 75,000 to 60,000 because there's more principal. I mean, we've already paid off some of that, so the interest is going down. We are bringing in 125,000 from the Special Projects Fund to fund some one-time costs, which include anticipated litigation, one-time litigation. And that's estimated at about $75,000 as part of that process. We are bringing in $45,000 from the water expense reserve under Fund 108. This is one-time expenses for the extension of the Bear Creek permit that Peter's working on.
What's the balance of the 108 fund right now? How much is in
The what?
Of the 108 fund, how much?
It's a little, it's probably about 10,800,000, maybe close to 11 million. We generally stay within 10.5 and 11 million at this particular point in time. We are bringing in 250,000 from the Special Projects Fund to fully fund our capital outlay program, which is both equipment purchases and projects. And then these are the R&R project funding that I talked about that offset salaries and benefits. This is equivalent to the amount of time, salaries and benefits for staff time spent on water R&R projects. The 201,479 is what's been spent on sewer R&R projects. This particular item down here, 120 expansion, we have $80,000 worth of capacity fee studies in engineering. Copper water, copper sewer, La Quintana sewer, Jenny Lynn water, 20,000 each. Those are being funded by the expansion funds. So that 80,000 is included in these $2 items right here. So in reality, only a little over 19,000 of engineering time is spent on CIP projects, not R&R projects, and 8,000 is spent on sewer CIP projects that are not R&R projects. So a total of 2.85 million is being transferred in to help offset our costs. Here's an expenditure summary of what our budget looks like and compared to last year's budget. Again, this is compared to budget, not to year-end projections. We're going to increase the budget $1.5 million. Again, the biggest part of that is the recognition of the costs associated with the licensing and our permits for New Hogan and North Fork, because we now have to budget the expense side of it.
This is just in the side. What is the algae down at New Hogan doing to the big picture?
What's that got to do with budget?
This is in the
So
side.
real quick on the algae from New Hogan, there was concern, I believe, from an NGO that this was cyanotoxins, so aquatic toxins in the blue-green algae that folks are experiencing like in the south and in the coast where there's ponds and reservoirs with a heavy nutrient load. There was some cyanotoxin analysis that was completed on the reservoir and it was found not to have cyanotoxins.
Oh, okay.
But in terms of the overall algae in Hogan, it does increase the organic load on the water treatment plant. But the Genuine Pre-Treatment Project, which is almost done, is constructed to address that fact.
Okay. So I'm not scared anymore.
Yeah, we should be good.
It's okay to go in the water.
One of the things I'd like to point out, and I mentioned earlier, the effect of taking out that UAL loan, of reducing our PERS costs on the benefit side, you can see we only have a $16,000 increase in salaries and benefits. But we have a $360,000 increase down in debt service. That's about the approximate shift there. So they kind of balance each other out. We are reducing our capital outlay budget by about $63,000. That in part is due to the lease program. We had to increase money for the leases, but we're not having to take money out and buy the vehicles. And that was a big component of this process is we are funding our lease program with operating revenues. So we had to absorb that this year. That's a significant accomplishment to be able to do that. Here is the list of capital outlay here at $502,000. There's a number of projects here. There's equipment purchases, a number of replacement items that are out there. Some of the bigger ones here is, as you go down towards the bottom, PRV vault and copper sawmill, that was on the 18-19 capital outlay budget. They didn't get to it, so we're going to roll it over to next year and budget for it next year. We have 4 trailer-mounted generators. You've all seen the headlines, a PG&E, the proactive shutdown of electricity. This allows Damon and his crew to have rolling stock and roll to where they need it for those areas that do not, pump stations and lift stations that do not already have generators.
Hopefully, they're already there, right?
We have a number of them, but
Yeah,
mean,
we're
we're
in good
talking
shape
about-
for the most part. About 90% of our facilities have on-site backup generation, but this is to cover the ones that don't, and also a contingency in the event that any of those aren't functioning properly. We need to know that we have backup generation available.
So the ones that are plants that don't have backup generations, we have portable generators right now. Are they there?
Well, Sheep Ranch, in particular, the raw water conveyance and the treatment facility would be where we would put some trailer-mounted generators currently, and they are not there, basically set up to kick on if we need to. No, we keep 2 trailer-mounted generators at the Copper Cove maintenance yard, which is the water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, and warehouse, and we have another trailer-mounted generator up on the pass, and we also have one at West Point. The sites that we don't have any standby trailer-mounted generators, or we haven't contemplated taking them there, are wastewater lift stations are some of those more critical items out in Copperopolis. We have approximately 7 lift stations that have no standby generators on site, and so the thought is that we could take some of these during an extended outage or an emergency and jockey the pumping of sewage down at each of those lift stations, kind of piggyback each site, and then take the ones that we have in stock and address Sheep Ranch, or if there's issues at a facility like Michael pointed out where perhaps a generator fails and we need to go run a critical site like a water treatment plant or a pump station.
And is our staff that operates those critical points, they're certainly aware that this is going to happen? It's going to happen this year. This isn't a what if, this is a when, what day, and.
Right,
Have
so,
you been able to access that grid that PG&E is supposed to put out to let us know what grids we were in, and so we know which ones are being turned on?
so they won't provide us access to the grid until approximately 72 to 48 hours prior to the planned shutdown. They will, however, one of their struggles right now is how do they provide us secure access? Because they don't necessarily want the general public to have access to the grid plan. So that's one of the conversations we have right now. Michael and I, before this meeting, were just at a meeting of the local fire departments, and we were letting them know that part of the work that we're doing currently is developing. It's going to become essentially an emergency action plan associated with this public safety power shutoff program, where we do contemplate all the choke points for each of our systems, water and wastewater. And I've already worked with staff and asked that they give me an understanding of those choke points, those critical areas of concern, so we can work to address within this emergency action plan how we're going to go about making sure those facilities are secure and okay during these programs. It's also going to include a bunch of interagency communication and some strategic relationships associated with power and generation and fuel. So we're working on a document, but it's not going to just be a simple staff report. It's actually turning into an emergency action plan.
Was PG&E going to say, put out a notice that says, okay, grids 1 through 10 will be shut off? Is that what they plan on doing, just putting that notice out there? And then you'll know what falls under whatever grids they're shutting off?
Not so much. It will be more like the western set portion of Calaveras County will be shut off. And then we will need to understand what that means. And then on the back end, they might say, here's grids 1 through 10. This is how we're going to go about checking every single line and transmission before we reestablish power. So it might be, okay, grids 10, 7, 10, 8, 9 are gonna come on in 2 days, and then the rest of the grid will come on in 4 days or something like that. Because one of my concerns that I expressed to PG&E is we need to know how we're gonna deploy our rolling stock in anticipation of when you're gonna re-energize. And so that's really gonna inform what we do. If we know that the most eastern edge of the county is gonna come on last, well, then we need to get all of our fuel, material, and equipment there ready to respond. And so it's gonna be an interesting relationship and how we work all that out.
And the other difficult part about the notice, and Damon and his staff have done a great job in preparing for this, but the 72-hour, 42-hour notice from PG&E is they're gonna try to do that, but they're not committing to it. If they determine that those hazards exist right now, they're gonna shut it off, and there may not be any notice. So we have to prepare for all these different scenarios that might arise.
Yeah, I happened to go to the PG&E emergency sheet, and I saw oh my God, what they're asking residents to do. I mean, there's 50 things that you have to do to get ready for a shut-off.
Yeah.
I can just imagine.
Yeah.
It is just,
Can we return to this $100,000 cost for these 4 mounted generators? Are those generators, they've already been purchased or they will be purchased?
They will be purchased. This is authorization to purchase
Okay.
them next
All right.
fiscal year.
Okay. And Damon, what is the capacity of each of these? Are they all the same or some larger, smaller? What?
So we can purchase approximately a 48 kW generator for right around 45 to 50,000. So what we really need to do, and this is part of this emergency action plan, is to drill down on what the actual KWH need is and where the most critical facility is. At first look, it appears that we can get some smaller 20 kW generators, which we can get for around 20 to 25 for these lift stations. And what my focus is let's resolve this public health and safety issue associated with raw sewage and lift stations during the extended power failures. And so that's what we're looking at, but we also appreciate the fact that we may have some flexibility there in terms of what we're gonna determine is the critical need, 40,000 or 25,000.
And how many generators for sewer versus water?
Well, we can deploy them anywhere.
Well, so the way this is,
Looking at this cost.
the way that's just broken up in terms of the proportion of the funds that we would use, it's not, they're not dedicated to water or sewer. Sure.
Right.
Are you a two?
Okay,
That's this thing, 'cause
I brought this up some time back about this facility. We have a standby generator that will power up the power. But have we talked to Donna about whether we will have water, whether we will have sewer in an outage?
So I don't think we have a sewer connection here.
No, there's no sewer
Oh,
connection,
septic,
it's a
yes.
leach field.
But we have been in coordination or communication with other water districts. That we discussed this at length in our most recent Utilities Coordination Committee meeting. I don't know if we've specifically asked Donna about this particular facility, which it's a good question, we should. But we have been trying to get the word out to other smaller agencies to make sure they're also preparing for this.
Okay, well, can we
We'll follow
resolve
up
to
with
have a
Donna.
report
Yes.
back whether we're going to be able to flush the toilets here?
Yes.
Okay, would be important. Okay, you,
I have a question on the CNMS.
Yes.
Have we had a presentation on that?
The board has not had a presentation. Internally, staff has had numerous presentations from vendors. They're actually going through and grading each one, and they're fairly,
When I get back to this, by approving the budget, we're approving to spend $150,000, and we haven't seen what it is.
you're approving to spend up to that amount.
Okay.
And that's reflective of, it looks like that's the final choice, but your board, on a contract of that amount, it would come to your board for authorization.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know at this point, what that $150,000 will get you? Is it just software? Is there, PCs involved? Is there an annual cost? And just real quick answer.
Yes, no, and yes.
Yes, no, and yes.
So the highest, we've reviewed approximately we've had 7 different presentations. The software everybody has voted to be the highest has a cost of $140,000 for 3 years. So the first year is approximately $80,000, with the second and third year approximately $30,000 in licensing. And that's for
So
everybody.
that's just software and annual fees for maintenance.
Yeah.
Once you purchase that software, right, you purchase it, and after that, it's just maintenance?
It actually lives on the cloud, so we don't have it on premises. We purchase the ability to use it, and then those folks come in, and it's basically the integration and training for all staff.
So what's the annual fee gonna be?
$30,000, about $30,000.
$30,000?
Yeah. Yep. So, but that initial cost of $140 for 3 years.
Is there any possibility to buy the software, so we don't have to keep paying every?
No entity will allow you to get away from the annual licensing costs. So we could host it, but then we're responsible for making sure that the server works and all of the appurtenances associated with the software work, because we're responsible for those. So it's a little more cost effective to keep it on the cloud, because then it remains the responsibility of the vendor. However, we can't escape the annual licensing fee. The most expensive annual licensing fee we've seen out of all of the vendors is about $50,000, and then the cheapest is about $28,000. So $30,000 amongst all the folks that we've reviewed is looking okay for us.
And that's very common to software programs like that, more common than not, as far as being able to buy
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, right.
Yes?
Any other questions on capital outlay?
No,
Okay.
not for me.
On debt service, the good news is we paid off the Umpqua PERS side fund loan this year, so that's going off the books at a savings of about $260,000. We did add the PERS UAL loan, and we are paying off the building, which is good too. We're on track for that. That's the second year of that. And I do want to note one more thing. As you remember, we have to not only balance the entire operating budget, we have to balance by fund as well. What I mean by that, Fund 300 Water Fund has to balance, Fund 500 Sewer Fund has to balance. That's what we work off of. Sometimes one fund may have a little bit of a surplus and the other one be at a deficit, so there's this balancing act I have to go through. The way this particular budget is set up and the way we allocate costs in this particular budget, especially when we look at capital outlay and others, we actually have a surplus in the sewer fund. But remember, the sewer fund owes the water fund close to $1 million for past deficits. We have a program, as you can see there, we already have a sewer fund lined up to pay a loan that's about $80,000 a year. My proposal for this budget is to use any surplus in the sewer fund to make a one-time principal pay down on the amount that's owed to the water fund. That's why you see the increase on the bottom right-hand corner of $135,000. And down below, it shows you the maturities of each of the loans. The good news is capital and R&R loans mature in March of 2021. Any questions on debt service?
The admin billing says it matures in '23, but we're paying it off this year?
No, we make annual payments. It's a $3 million loan.
Okay, I thought I heard you say something about paying it off.
We started paying it last year. We deferred it for a little bit of time because we had,
Oh,
and now this is our second year of the loan payoff. And we borrowed internally,
right.
so we're paying back the expansion funds.
Right.
Okay, individual department budgets.
So, do you mind if I ask a quick question, President Thomas? And this is, I think I might have asked you this before, but I just want to be sure. The alternative, instead of using the surplus in the sewer fund to pay down the, the loan to the water fund, what else would we do with that surplus? Would it go into the sewer R&R fund?
No, it cannot, it does not go into the R&R fund. It's operating revenue.
It stays in the sewer operating fund,
Stays in Fund 500.
right? So it's something for us to think about as to whether we want to keep that revenue on the sewers, that surplus revenue on the sewer side for future use, or put it into the water fund.
Wouldn't that have the effect of making the sewer fund appear to be more healthy? I mean, we've heard constant comments about we can't get grants and stuff because we're out of balance on revenue versus expenses on the sewer side. So having a little extra cash in there wouldn't be beneficial? Or?
Then they also take a look at your debt on the sewer fund.
Okay. All
And the
right.
debt is to the water fund.
Okay.
And so it's that catch-22, and it's making us healthier on our debt side,
Okay.
paying that down quicker.
The only reason I bring that up is because once we transfer that to the water fund, it's water money at that point. So I
Right,
just
but-
was wondering if there might be a way, or whether we should think about keeping it on the sewer side, but if it's restricted to operating funds, we're probably not gonna want to rely on that source of funding for ongoing
What's
operations.
the balance due on that loan?
It was originally $750,000, now it's up to $1 million. Because last year, 17, 18, we were also in the hole. Now with our revenues increases, we're hopefully getting on track. The other part of it is we do not make this loan payment until the end of the fiscal year. So that if we see something happening, we have that ability. This is just authorizing up to.
Do you have to charge interest on an internal loan?
Yes, you do.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
There, in reading this, Jeff, didn't I read some statement
Pretty
that
good.
said that within a couple of years,
It's
because of the
fair.
rate
Had to
increases,
has
we'll
to
be
a
able to
fair,
pay off something? Was there that kind of a statement?
yes, please.
We will be, the rate increase will make us whole as far, and that's based on the rate model, is that revenues will be able to fund expenditures.
Okay.
We knew that sewer
Right.
was in the hole and it would take us a while to get up there. At years 4 and 5, sewer funding, based on the projection, should be able to match. Now, I don't anticipate having a surplus next year in the sewer side. It's just how we allocated some of the capital outlay information, because if you look at this on capital outlay, $323,000 went to the sewer water fund, and only 178,000 went to the sewer. So if it was more of a 50-50 mix or split, we wouldn't have that.
Right, okay.
Are we ready to go on to departmental budgets?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
This is your budget, Board of Directors. There's a slight decrease from last year's budget of $3,500. The biggest reason for that is no elections this coming year. And that's what we're taking out, the $11,500.
The salaries and benefits increase, is that because of the benefit side or
It's-
costs? Or?
No, it's the choice. I'm going to try to be very politically correct in this. Each board member gets an opportunity to have health insurance. Some of them are employee or employee plus one. Your predecessor was just employee.
Oh, so it's me.
Yes.
Fine. I got a bull.
It's not you, it's your husband.
Yes, exactly.
In fact, I was yelling at him the other day, saying, if you don't get your doctor, I'm hoping you're not gonna do it next year. Because why pay? Because I paid, you know.
Yes. There is,
Exactly.
Well, thanks for asking.
I know. All right, next year, one more year. that's it.
I was hoping it wasn't me.
some of it is just annual
I
increases,
paid for him.
15%.
Oh, that's good.
The district picks up 85%.
Okay.
And some of it too is the choice of plans and the fact that some of our health insurance costs are going up. So that isn't 100% directly related to you. 95.
We share it in.
Okay. Now, one of the challenges that I want to point out is this, if you go to your page here, if you go to your individual budget page on the budget package that shows you the detail, and this is something we've had some conversations with at the Finance Committee. Page number 5 of this particular worksheet. It's in your budget package, your agenda package, I'm sorry, your agenda package. I didn't go into line item detail. Under services and supplies, if you look at the budgets for training, conferences, and travel and other travel costs, from our projections, it looks like you're going to be over budget for both of those based on year-end projections for 18-19. When we talked about this at the Finance Committee meeting, there was some discussion on maybe bumping those up, but then take it back because Director Cicada said you can try to manage within that budget and who goes where and do a better job of managing those costs. So at that direction, we pulled those out. Just as a discussion item, doesn't need to be discussed now, but that's something that should be monitored and how your board can decide on those costs.
Russ wasn't here, I don't know if you were here, Scott, but I had recommended that we, to save some costs, that perhaps not everybody gets to go to Aqua or whatever, some of those more expensive ones, maybe we should decide that only 2 of you go or something, instead of everybody going to save costs. If you were there last year, then maybe you wouldn't go the following year, or something, just amongst ourselves, try and save by those costs. You know, save costs by not everybody going. Just a thought, that's all. You know, don't all shoot me now.
What'd she say?
You should go more.
I wish I could, but I still work, so I can't.
Well, the reason I say that is that any new director, I think, benefits in a measurable way by going to get the education there. And to, maybe one of the biggest benefits is just the interaction with directors of nearby and faraway districts. It's I don't know. I think
Well,
it's
when I went
very
to the
beneficial.
Aqua one this year, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was great. But maybe, well, either way.
So you may, and,
Yeah, that was really interesting.
and Cindy, maybe because you're in the business already. You're in the wastewater business already. I mean, when I came, my education and learning on what wastewater and water, what collections and distributions, what that even means. To me, collections is a financial term. When I first got here, I said, I'm in collections. Oh, you work in the office. No, you don't. That's where the education starts. I've been to a lot of aqua conferences, and they're more than fun, and they're more than beneficial. They're very, very educational and important to know what's going on, and rubbing shoulders and finding out what's going on at other districts, and finding out, just checking out new technology in the, they are expensive, but I think in the overall picture, it's well worth the educational value, far oversees that cost. And I don't know what percentage of our budget the board of directors is, but it's not much as far as an overall picture. And if we're
0.7%.
yeah, if we're going to start cutting costs, I don't think that's where we begin. And I do appreciate your point of view to do what we can do to cut. But let's start with some big chunks and see where we can cut stuff out. And I think we're doing that. We already talked about some of the things. The lease program, that's great. We are going to cut some money out of our budget there by doing leasing instead of buying equipment. Having an inventory, taking inventory and keeping track of that, bringing in, doing all mechanic work at one place. There is a lot of things that we're doing that's streamlining that will eventually cut expenses, but I do think the more opportunities we have for education through CSDA, California Special District Association, and Aqua. And whether they're webinars or actually conferences, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see it taken away. I mean, you didn't get to go you didn't go to the one in Monterey, and there was so much going on with PG&E and these shutoffs, forest management, the conservation. I mean, there's just.
And I do know about all that because of my job.
Right.
I could
You
do
spend 8
more
hours a day.
Education with water side.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think the education is good. I just was thinking,
Well,
we do them
Yeah,
every
the other
year,
four of us
walk.
don't. I have a full-time job, and I can teach insurance, and I can teach claims, but I don't know as much about water and wastewater as I'd like to. I mean, we got 2 contractors here, and Bertha's been around water and wastewater for a long time here at CCWD, but there's so many changing things that are going on this year that didn't go on last year. That's where I think the value of that is, and I'd hate to see it us. And I know I did hear you say that before.
Okay. Well, actually, and I want to clarify, I did not cut the budget.
Okay.
I just did not increase it.
Okay.
And if I go back to fiscal year 17-18, if you look at the column there, it was just 21,000. This year is it's going to be a little bit higher, but I kept the budget the same dollar amount. So you're going to get, the budget is 21.5, so it's just, there's no increase, it's just maintained the same.
And as I was telling Cindy, we don't spend, the board of directors doesn't spend anything really, other than, our mileage and our conferences.
Paper.
Because
We use a lot of paper
A lot of snacks.
and snacks,
Yeah,
grapes.
So we are bare bones because we do recognize the importance of going to the conferences, and that's,
I saw that unjustifiable entry for treats market for the office, the office expenditures, so anyway, here's the treats.
Moving on to general management, this budget includes Michael and HR and Rebecca. In looking at the salaries and benefits, there is a decrease. That is due in part to the UAL loan being moved down. Service and supplies, however, is going up $101,000, and I want to get into a little bit of detail of that. Part of it is we've moved some of the safety equipment from non-departmental over to general management. It's the AFibs machine. So it's the defibrillation machines that you have out that we're buying and we're having on site. Staff likes to say it's a Jeff Meyer machine that he has to kind of carry around.
I would imagine everyone's trained on those.
Everybody's trained annually. We do that, and it's part of our first aid training. And we want to be able to have,
hair?
In here?
yeah.
No, we like right here.
It's right around the corner outside the kitchen area, right there. The goal is to get one for each location, but then again, there's also replacement parts because the batteries only last for so long and so forth. But Stacy manages that, HR manages that. We increased legal fees by $102,000, that's the biggest bulk here. Anticipated litigation with La Quintana, and you've got contract negotiations coming up this year. So that's labor, legal costs. We've also included, within the budget, we've included $50,000 for planning and organizational studies. That's a continuation of what we're doing. The cough study is wrapping up.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
And we decreased training, conference, and travel costs by $6,800. Overall, this budget increased by $87,000. But again, what you're seeing is some of those are one-time costs. Admin services. This budget increased $226,000. This is my budget. Reason being for a good part of that is Joel moving over from water resources into admin services. We're bringing over not only his salary and benefits, but we're bringing over the water water efficiency program, which brought over materials and supplies by 1,000, printing by 500, training, travel, and conferences for 5,000, and water efficiency supplies and scholarships for 3,000. Other areas to note is $9,000 increase in service maintenance contracts, system service maintenance contracts for software, our Springbrook and other software, and also our maintenance contracts on our machines, our mailing machines, and everything else we use. We do have a slight increase in paymentus costs by about $1,500. The more people use online pay, the more costs we have.
And Jeff, the 60,000 for the CAP program?
Yes.
That's in your budget right here?
Yes.
Under supplies or whatever?
It's under services and supplies, yes. And that, the reason you see that, yes, you adopted it this year, but we only used one-time funds out of a special project fund for funding it. Now it's being moved to the operational side, fund revenues, operating revenues to cover it. So we have to absorb it now. And wasn't in last year's budget.
The 60,000 that we approved, that's coming was it from our interest earned?
No, it's just coming from non-rate revenues.
Right.
We didn't designate which of the non-rate, we get rental agreement for
Oh, I remember those ones.
Yeah,
property tax. I mean,
Property
geez, we
tax,
have millions in property tax. There's always money available to.
yeah. It's easier just to say non-rate revenues than one specifically.
Are we going to do any kind of customer education to pick up more sewer customers?
On the cap side, that would be a Joel question. He's doing some type of outreach, but I'm not sure what his next steps are.
Because we only need, what, 37 or 72?
We got Vicky.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We are going to be purchasing a LaserJet printer for the office here. Ours is about 8-9 years old, and it's on its last legs. So overall, again, our increase $226,000. The bulk of that is Joel coming over. Engineering. Their budget is increasing by $278,000. There's two major components for that. One is, in last year's budget, we didn't have the engineer. We approved it in this year's budget, but I go back to what was approved last June. So you're gonna see salaries and benefits costs there. There's a little bit of some extra overlap because we have a key, one of the members, staff members in engineering is retiring at the end of the year. So we wanna make sure we have some training ability there and don't lose that skill set.
Robbie's going?
Yes. So we want to make sure there's a brain drain from Robbie to the successor. Sam had made a presentation to you earlier about GIS.
Right.
We're adding about $6,000 for supplies and some training to keep that program moving along. The other big chunk is $80,000 for the 4 capacity fee studies, but remember, those are being funded by expansion funds. So we're having money come in to offset that, and those are one-time costs. Utilities. Overall, their budget is dropping a little over $126,000. The bulk of that is in salaries and benefits. And you say, why? UAL loan. It drops it by $238,000, moving it out of benefits down into debt service. And what we do on this particular one, we allocate a dollar amount based on headcount. We look at the UAL, the cost of what it was, 66 people, how many people are in each department, and we allocate it by person. There's a dollar amount for each one. Since they have the bulk of the staff, that's why they get the bulk of the reduction. CPPA rates continue to be low. It's $67,000 below budget for last year. Materials and supplies went up $77,000. UV bulb replacement, and also now we have another ozone generator needs at the pretreatment plant. So that's gonna, or
No, yeah, Copper Cove.
Copper Cove, so, yes, at Copper Cove. So those are the costs, the reasons for that. We were able to, through use of a new provider on our labs, go down $35,000 for lab services from last year's budget. They've been maintaining that and doing a very good job.
Where do we go for lab?
It's called FGL, Fruit Growers Laboratory in Stockton.
Oh, okay.
Who'd you use before?
We used to use Eurofins. Yeah,
But they shut down, they closed down their operations in Northern California.
yeah.
Is that for monitoring the wells and water
Everything.
quality?
So, water and wastewater quality, required analysis, and then distribution system as well.
As I mentioned, we have the new lease program, which added $210,000 for the lease and maintenance, but since Enterprise is going to be taking over some of the maintenance, I was able to reduce that by $80,000. We moved $54,000 of fed, state, county fees to water resources. We're giving Peter a huge budget this year to manage, but these are things that he generally falls under his area, and we felt it's more appropriate for Peter to manage. And we reduced capital outlay budget by $58,000. In part, that's because of the lease program. We're not buying trucks at a capital outlay. So all in all, we reduced it about $127,000. Now, on the other side, water resources went up $930,000. And in looking at that, you can see, although we moved Joel out, and so there's that reduction of Joel, the $138,000. But we added a little over $1 million in services and supplies. Now, it's probably easier here if we go to the detail that was included in your agenda package on page 10. That would be this sheet right here. I think it's important to go through this because of the changes, budgetary changes we had moving things in and out. Just just to see this. Under the first line, materials and supplies, we reduced it by 19.5 because the project to install flow measurement devices on Bear Creek and at White Pines is complete. That was a one-time project. There's just going to be ongoing monitoring by the other Jeff Meyer, Western Hydraulics. We increased outside legal fees by $45,000. That's part of that permit extension that we're going to have Downey Brand do some work on to go in conjunction with the Western Hydraulics works on that. We moved the new Hogan operational cost budget from non-departmental over to Peter as well. Because he's managing, he interacts with MID frequently, and this was a more appropriate for him to manage that process as well. We added $753,000 for the, and that's down a little bit lower down under state, county, and federal fees. That's for New Hogan and North Fork. And if you look at mandated plans going down 55,000, that was the hazard mitigation plan and the West Point water plan that were completed this fiscal year. That's why you see a negative 50,000. The 50,000 addition under strategic plans, this is more of, there's two items here. One of them is the Section 219 New Maloney's project we're working with Bureau of Reclamation to see what we can do to utilize that. We need to do some initial planning on that. And there's also one...
Army Corps?
Army Corps, yeah. Michael, can you help me out with the discussion on that?
On,
The New Maloney's?
New Maloney.
so there's two separate work efforts there. One is on the water rights front, providing adequate demonstration of the water rights that we would utilize to fill a Warren Act contract. The other is on the demand side, basically justifying the need for that water. So part of that is legal, part of it is utilizing, we'll probably need some assistance from a consultant to help on the demand projection side. But basically it's all geared towards the effort that we need to do to get the Warren Act contract. And really, balls in our court, we've been kind of delaying with the Bureau for quite a while at this point, and we really need to step up and get some work done.
Sorry, I thought you said Hogan. No. Go.
Okay, and I may have. The other item that we're looking at is to kind of do some more strategic planning regarding the FERC relicensing process. And that's also going to be part of this budget, Peter's budget.
So we have talked in the past about $10 to $12 million being required to do that FERC relicensing. What portion of that are you budgeting now?
It may be more than that even in the long run if the total relicensing cost, which hopefully won't fall on us. What we're looking at this year is, it was in discussing this with Jeff and Peter, it's hard for us to make a recommendation to the board that we should set aside X number of dollars towards an effort when we haven't really determined what our effort is going to be yet. And so we want to, what we have budgeted for in the work effort that we plan in the coming months is strategic planning effort to really start to clarify what it is that our end goal is and how much of a work effort that's going to be for future budget cycles. But we really need to come up with a comprehensive plan and then work on funding it.
So you'll have that next week, right?
We'll be done by the end of the day today.
And, excuse me, we have already, we've already filed papers saying that we haven't.
No.
Oh,
Process hasn't started quite yet, but it's
Okay.
not far off.
okay.
Yeah.
Where we're going to be asking for a delay, is that?
There's no such thing.
No.
No.
It's a scheduled departure of the train. We have to be on the train when it departs.
Right. The licenses expire in 2033, but it takes years of work.
Right, well, that's what, you know.
Right. So no, we're not up against any deadlines right now, but we're close enough to that work effort that we really need to have a work session with the board and develop a strategy.
When would you recommend the latest, what year we should say we have to have this?
Last year, we should have started.
That's not gonna work. So
2010 would be my recommendation. Well, and that depends on what comes out of this work effort. So it depends on what strategy we decide to pursue.
So we gotta plan a workshop for that.
So that's why we
That'd be
felt like
good.
we really need to drill down on this with the board and really develop our plan, and then we can really just start to put some numbers to it.
So we'll be watching.
Yes. Yeah, in fact, we have a proposal I just received yesterday from somebody that has a lot of experience in this field.
We only have 2
Let's develop
meetings
that.
today. Can we do that workshop this afternoon?
Sure. Let's schedule that for 4:30 to 5. Yeah.
Was that a motion?
Yeah.
No. I protest.
I mean, these are the Warren Act and the FERC relicensing. These are really long-term efforts, but are hugely significant
No,
for
very,
the
very.
district.
Well, this is the most important thing we got going on, right?
So we really need to.
This decade.
We need to approach it deliberately. We need to have a plan going into it where we have we have an end goal and we have a plan to get there.
And so Peter's plate is getting very full.
Yes.
But he's been in, this is something, as Michael said, we've been talking about, and now's the time we're gonna put the money in to do some initial strategic planning, but it doesn't mean that's the end of the cash flow needs.
You know, perhaps we may want to consider doing a workshop for Michael's, what we expect Michael to do, maybe that work will dive into that.
Okay, that's good point, good segue.
I just have one more department, that's non-departmental. You can see the budget increased to $115,000. The service and supplies, remember we moved New Hogan out to Peter's budget, and we added debt in the, for the UAL loan. So we moved $293,000 to Peter's budget. Retired employee costs went up by about $45,000. This is the health insurance cost for existing retirees. It's a combination of 2 things. 1, rates have gone up. 2, we have more retired people. So that's where we're seeing the increase. Insurance costs, our property insurance costs are projected to go up about $4,600. We were notified by Aqua JPIA that this is on the horizon. Per side fund loan, as I mentioned, was retired, and we added the Umpqua loan. So all in all, when we look at this summary of all the departments, again, the budget goes up $1.5 million. As I mentioned too, that we have to balance our budgets. Budget overall in the operating budget and the water and sewer funds. So as presented today, the budget has an overall surplus of about $9,800. However, I'm going to put a qualifier on that, and we'll come back to that in just a moment. Also, take a look, we balanced both water and sewer funds. How did we do that? Well, part of it is we brought transfers in to help fund the one-time cost, $125,000 for the one-time costs in legal costs and other costs there, one-time costs, water rights, and capital outlay budget. And I don't know how much you want to get into this, Michael, but as we move forward, as Michael said, there's a couple agenda items on next meeting's agenda in advance of the budget. As you said, the purchasing agent and some of the reorgs. Once, if we go forward with that, moving some people from one department to another and shifting around, will change the budget.
Oh, absolutely.
Part of it is that it'll change the cost allocation between water and sewer and a number of things. So just be prepared that as we look at that, they may not be your final numbers.
And just to clarify, it changes the allocation. It's not a significant overall increase.
Right.
We're not adding new employees. It's not a big increase. It's just a reallocation, and that changes departmental funding.
Yeah, and when I mean as far as allocation, allocating between the water and sewer funds. That's where we're talking about.
And among the departments.
Yeah, and among the departments and among the two funds. Any questions on the operating budget before I give a 30-second review of the CIP budget?
Okay,
30 seconds.
I just wanted to bring back up the fact that although the variance in the budget for is $1,338,000, $750,000 of it is that recommended hocus pocus that you did that ended up being a zero
yeah, well,
sum.
that's transparency.
Transparency? Well, but it somebody walking in and just looking at this fact that our budget went up $1,338,000 in 1 year, it wouldn't be transparent to them. I mean, what they'd see is that, my God, they're spending a lot more money this year than they spent last year. So
I
anyway,
agree,
just saying.
yes.
Okay.
And that's something
I'm
that
glad you
brought
point
up-
that out again, because we put a lot of effort into making this as tight as we possibly could, and it still looks like a big increase, but it's largely because of that.
Yeah.
It's largely because of,
the change in how we're accounting for those
Right,
reimbursable
right,
costs.
Yes.
Okay, Jeff, are you anticipating, and I ask this every year, are you anticipating possibly moving something?
Oh, we'll do that every year for you, Director Underhill.
If you don't do it for me, you'll do it for the auditors.
And that's the key here.
Yeah, yeah.
We have to follow the auditor's direction. As they delved into this more and more, our audits are super clean. That's why when we did the UAL loan, the underwriters and the banks looked at this and they said, this is perfect, this is what we want. So these are things that as you prepare your budgets and your books, it's not just for internal, it's for the external customers as well. And I don't know if the auditors are gonna pick up something else, but I doubt you'll see some significance changes, unless we'll move Joel back to water resources next year. That was deep
Yeah.
facetious.
Michael's over there squirming.
I didn't hear anybody laugh.
Are there any other questions?
Nope.
So at this particular point in time, what I am assuming here, direction from your board on the operating budget is, other than the changes that you will see on the organizational side, the budget as presented can go forward, okay, for the proposed budget on January 26th for adoption. Is that correct?
January 26th.
June 26th, I'm sorry. Did I say January?
Yeah.
June 26th.
I thought,
This isn't an action.
Well,
26th.
before I
I thought
say
it was 29th.
yes, you're right in making that assumption. I just have to ask both of you, is this the best we can do? It's balanced budget, there's no changes that you wish you had made that you didn't make, or, you know, I just need to have some confidence that you have confidence, 100% confidence in what we're looking at here.
This was a pretty exhaustive process. Jeff and I met with each of the department heads on multiple occasions and went through their budgets line by line. There's certainly some things on the want list, or maybe arguably need list, that we are not including in the budget because of the constraints that we have. But I think as far as, you know, the resources that we have, this is, yeah, I absolutely would stand by this as the best we can present.
Okay. Did everybody hear that?
Yeah, because I knew that, you know, we were out of balance and you were looking for ways to cut, and I wanted to make sure, and I heard from you that safety remained top. In, you know, in the grand scheme, and then quality. You know, you can't be cutting back on practices. That's all there is to it. So I'm happy with that.
And to follow up to your question, President Thomas, every year it's a struggle. I've got to cut. There's always more needs than dollars. And as for the years that you've been on the board, and Director Ratterman and Director Underhill, we always go through this process of cutting because there's more than what we can do. However, what I'm really proud of in this year's budget, we're including some key items that are going to move us forward. Things that have been on the back burner for many, many years. Back to 2008, 2010, things that we've wanted to do that we know is going to make us more efficient and to operate better. GIS is something we've known for a long time. We started that effort and we're moving forward. CMMS is something that has started back in 2008, 2006. Now we're making a concerted effort to get that moving forward, which is really going to help the district. These are investments in the future, and we're putting it into this budget. And when I see it as, is it a need, is it a want? It's a definite need, long overdue. The other process is the fleet that Damon's pushing, has been showing, in that's something else. It's employee safety. So these are things that I think in this particular budget, we've taken great strides in pushing this district forward and giving the employees the tools they need to give the district they need, and to not only that, to allow us to do strategic planning on our repair program, our capital R&R program, to look at where we really need to address the resources. And that's the big plus that I see this year that we haven't done in the past. So yes, I'm behind this 100%.
Okay, something just occurred to me that I don't recall you mentioning where a budget item would be found for the property acquisition and the proposed facilities construction next door.
That's in the CIP budget.
Okay, CIP.
And actually, that budget was already approved in this fiscal year.
Okay.
When we look at actual building and all that process, that would be in the CIP budget.
And
Okay,
it will
we
come
have
back to the board.
It will come back to the board.
Okay, but we have CIP water, CIP wastewater, and then there's a CIP standalone?
Those
Section.
are, that's for staff time spent on projects. That's
Okay.
not for the acquisition of assets.
Okay. All right. So this is not an action item here other than a recommendation?
It's a direction item.
Okay.
Direction,
Um,
yeah.
Could I ask a question on CIP water?
Yes, and now that's what we're going,
Oh,
once
okay.
we hit the operating, that's going to move to CIP water.
Okay, go.
Because we have 8 minutes.
Do it.
So a little bit more than 30 seconds, Scott.
All right.
Okay.
I'd
Go ahead.
give him
Oh,
30
I will.
Give him 30 seconds.
30 seconds, the clock is running.
I just saw a memo, a letter about delaying the Techite because the bids came in so high?
That's on your agenda for the board meeting this
Oh, okay,
afternoon.
all right.
Yes.
So that, okay, but it's
still in the-
reflected, it's reflected here in the.
It's still a need that we've identified in the CIP.
Okay, so, all right.
Yes.
That's something that the new purchasing agent he'll have to do. He's got to be a Swiss Army knife.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, we got some high hopes for this person.
And as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, our CIP budget is based on the 5-year CIP that you approved previously. And all we did is cut out those first cash needs for the first year And that's under the cash flow 1920, and the projections for the next 2 years following are that projections. So the total budget for, let me go back in my agenda item. The total operating budget that has been presented is $20,651,604, and the total CIP budget is $11,489,953. And the breakdown on funding, the majority of the funding for these CIP projects is coming from the capital R&R funds, a little over 10.3 million, grants of about 800,000, some assessment district funds of 150,000. That's the Wallace Assessment District, the improvements we're making down in Wallace. And that's an assessment district that was created when we absorbed them. We've been collecting funds, and they're going to be, it's basically pay-as-you-go on those projects.
Okay.
That's all I have in the presentation.
Okay, on this next steps, questions and comments? Any? You're good? Bertha? Scott?
I'm through.
I'm very thorough. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
thank you, Jeff. Great,
Certainly.
and thank you, Damon.
And just to let you know, in 2 weeks, you will be requested to approve 2 resolutions. One for the budget, the other is a personnel allocation, which has to be adopted at the same time. And that's next year. That would be based on moving forward with, at this particular time, the add delete on the electrician and purchasing agent.
Okay.
Good to have a sneak peek.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And I want to acknowledge Patty. I see your fingerprints all over this, too. It's, thanks for your effort.
And our general manager had a little bit to do with it.
Well, he's just he's the guy with the whistle and the whip, so.
When we brought the department heads to meet with us, there was a hot interrogation lamp. Jeff and I both had scissors and hatchets, and it was,
Yeah.
we've definitely put the pressure on.
Actually, and I have to say, Michael's really stepped up to understanding, in a short amount of time, understanding our budget, our needs, and more importantly, and this is most difficult, how to understand how I do my job and all the different things that go along with making the budget work.
Okay, so I guess that we can adjourn this meeting and have a sandwich or something? Okay? All right, the budget meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I'm gonna get my tickets for you there, Scott.
Hey, thank you, Cindy.
Right back. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, my goodness, my goodness, my goodness.